I didn't lose my job because I was late or rude or lazy. I lost it because I helped an old woman eat breakfast. Yeah, that's not a metaphor. That's exactly what happened. My name is Daniel Brooks, and for a long time I was the kind of guy people looked through instead of at. 34 years old, black, working a minimum wage service job in a town that had already given up on itself. The kind of place where factories shut down storefronts, stayed empty, and everyone pretended it was temporary, even though we all knew better. I wasn't chasing dreams anymore. I was chasing stability, health insurance, a paycheck that didn't bounce, something solid enough to keep my family afloat. I worked at a roadside diner called Maple Fork Grill, a fake retro place with cracked vinyl booths and a coffee machine that screamed like it was dying every time you turned it on. Management loved rules. Not the reasonable kind. The kind that existed so someone higher up could feel powerful enforcing them. My manager, Carol, treated the employee handbook like scripture. No improvising, no thinking, no exceptions, ever. And I followed every rule. I showed up early, stayed late, smiled at customers who never smiled back. Because at home, my daughter Lily needed treatments twice a day just to breathe without pain, and that diner's insurance, as bad as it was the only thing standing between us and absolute disaster. So I kept my head down. I made myself small. I became invisible on purpose. Until one morning I didn't. It was slow that day. Late breakfast crowd already gone. Just a few regulars hanging around. That's when I noticed them. An elderly white couple in the corner booth by the window. The man wore a wrinkled jacket he'd clearly owned for years. The woman had on a pale blue dress a little too big on her now, and a single rose pinned near her collar. They were holding hands. I brought their food, and I saw it immediately. The woman's hands were shaking. Not nerves. Something deeper. She tried to lift her fork, got it halfway up, then dropped it. The sound echoed louder than it should have. Her husband tried to help. Cut her food. Steady her hand. Eat his own meal before it went cold. Keep smiling like everything was fine. It wasn't fine. I stood there holding a coffee pot frozen. I thought about my wife that morning trying to calm Lily through a coughing fit while I rushed out the door. I thought about how helpless that felt. Wanting to help and not being enough. The diner was quiet. Carol was in her office. No one waiting on me, so I asked. "Sir," I said softly, "would you like a hand for a minute?" He looked up like I'd just offered him oxygen. "I hate to ask," he said, voice tight, "but yeah, that would mean a lot." I didn't sit down. I didn't make a scene. I stood beside the booth, cut the food into smaller pieces, held the fork steady so she could eat. She looked at me once, eyes suddenly clear, and whispered, "Thank you." Not loud, not dramatic, just real. 5 minutes, that's all it took. 5 minutes later, my life blew up. Daniel, Carol snapped from across the room. "Office, now." She didn't ask what happened. She didn't want context. She wanted control. She flipped through the handbook like she was building a case in court. Unauthorized physical contact. Liability risk. Policy violation. "I was just helping her eat," I said. "They asked me to." "That's not the point," she shot back. "You don't decide when rules apply." And just like that I was fired, effective immediately. No warning, no write-up, just done. I tried to explain what that meant. The insurance, my daughter's treatment scheduled that week. She didn't care. She told me payroll would mail my final check, 7 to 10 business days, like that was acceptable. The couple tried to step in. The kitchen staff backed me up. Carol shut it all down. Comped the meal, stood by her decision. I clocked out, grabbed my jacket, and walked into the cold, feeling like the ground had vanished beneath me. The walk home took 40 minutes. I didn't feel the cold. All I felt was panic. How do you tell your wife that being decent just cost you everything? What I didn't know was that someone had watched the whole thing. A woman in the corner booth. Freelance writer. She took a photo. Posted it with a caption that said something like, "Fired for helping an elderly woman eat." By the next morning it was everywhere. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Comments, messages. People angry on my behalf. Someone started a fundraiser. $5,000 showed up out of nowhere. Enough to buy time, not enough to solve anything. I hated the attention. Hated strangers dissecting my life, my kid's illness, my finances. But I couldn't deny that the money meant Lily could see her doctor. And then something else happened. Hundreds of miles away, a man named Thomas Reed saw the photo. The elderly woman was his mother. He was a high-level executive. Successful. Rich. The kind of guy who thought sending money home was the same as being there. Seeing that photo wrecked him. He flew in that night. And 2 days later, he knocked on my door. I didn't trust him at first. Why would I? People like him didn't show up in neighborhoods like mine unless they wanted something. But he didn't offer charity. He offered opportunity. A job at a senior care facility he helped fund. Full benefits. Day 1, training included. I almost said no. Pride is expensive, but my daughter's breathing was worse that week and pride doesn't pay hospital bills. I took the job. It was harder than anything I'd ever done. Physically brutal. Emotionally draining. Watching people fade, forget struggle. Some days, I went home feeling like I mattered. Other days, I sat in my car wondering if I was strong enough to keep going. But the insurance covered Lily's treatments. For the first time, we weren't rationing care. We weren't choosing which bill to ignore. Time passed. I trained. Failed exams. Studied late. Failed again. Almost quit. Kept going anyway. Because my daughter was watching. Because I didn't want her to learn that you give up when things get hard. Years later, I became a nurse. Not a perfect one. Not the smartest in the room. But one who saw people. One who remembered what it felt like to be disposable. The facility changed. The culture changed. Dignity became non-negotiable. Thomas changed too. He stepped back from chasing money and showed up for his parents. He was there when his mother forgot him. There when she remembered. There at the end. Together, we started something small. A fund for workers fired for doing the right thing. Grocery clerks, teachers, security guards, people punished for compassion. One case at a time, trying to make kindness cost a little less. 10 years after that morning at the diner, I stood at a podium in front of a building named after that woman. My daughter, healthy enough to dream. My wife smiling without fear behind her eyes, a life I never planned. I didn't lose everything that day. I lost a job. And I found who I was. So here's the question I want you to sit with. If you were standing where I stood, and you knew the cost, would you have helped her anyway? Tell me what you think. Argue with me if you want. Share a story you've seen. Because the line between policy and humanity is thinner than we like to admit, and sooner or later, every one of us ends up standing on it.